Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pondering Skulls podcast. My name is Bree.
And my name is Mo.
And today we're going to be reading part 4 through 6 of the I'm an Evil Doll, but I'm Not the Problem. So, hope you enjoy.
Bye-bye.
In case anyone is wondering, I'm typing this from the security of my attic with my very first smartphone. Well, it's not mine per se, but it's mine now is what's important. Maybe being a bit more relaxed will help me relate myself better. I'd be a fan of that. The past few days, even by my standards, have just been odd and violent. But that part goes without saying. Looks like more and more people are trying to help me out. Much appreciated, as always. Here's a little feedback for you and a couple of questions. First off, why does everyone seem to know more about this flea market than I do? I'd have thought getting things firsthand from something that looked like Pumpkinhead's church-going cousin would have put me at an advantage with you guys, seem to know what's up better than I do. I'm going to hazard a guess it has something to do with the fact that there's certain information I just can't see. That same Vanta Black that blocks my travel sensors out of all kinds of things. I'd tell you what, but you know the worst part of censorship is. Doesn't seem to work with secondhand info though. Not yet anyway. I'm chalking that up to my creator's community college level sorcery skills, so please, if you know something I don't, pass it on. Second, you guys seem to have some pretty high hopes for my morals. I expected a group of random folks to be telling me to slaughter the neighborhood with the hero's skull for shits and giggles, but it seems things have gotten a little less edgy since the 90s. Probably not a bad thing. Lastly, you guys seem to think Kaz can help me out quite a bit. Got to say, he did seem like fear incarnate. I'll keep that in mind. If I missed you, it's probably because I took your advice, and I'll be getting to it in a minute. The headline of the past couple weeks is the entire goon squad piling into their literal hearse and taking off. The bishop seemed to have packed a couple of suitcases, so I assumed I was going to have at least a few days. But to play it safe, I spent the first day in the attic. I'm still nervous about the glance the twin and I exchanged, and not about to get caught in a trap invented by paranoid parents. A little after 1 on the second night, I hear what I initially think is the bishop and the 3 pawns. Better name? Worse? But as I focus, I hear 5 voices whispering, and most certainly sounding like nothing that stalks the night with any degree of real skill. A window breaks and I smell it. I know most of you guys think of me as the good guy. I mean, I'm pretty sure someone is working on making a plush or a body pillow of me as we speak. I have so many questions about the fads in 2024. But there are going to be times you get a deep, uncomfortable look into the vile crap hastily sewn together that is me. This is one of those times. What I smelled was innocence. And with it, I gained an understanding, a look into what my base drive is. I'd love to say I didn't like it, to say I felt it was a vile compulsion, but the truth is, that's not how it feels. It's exciting, it's primal, and on a very real level, it feeds me. With that first whiff, I understood innocence. It's not being perfect or young, chaste or naive. It's complicated, of course. But at its core, it's doing things for the right reasons. Having that spark of human kindness, loyalty, and selflessness, even among flaws that may appear irredeemable to some. 2 of those men had it. 3 of those men were acceptable collateral damage. Nothing in me, meat, cloth, or magic, feels any different. I respect you all too much to lie. I start to salivate, the fluid pooling and dripping out of the bottom of my ceramic head. I feel power. I feel confidence. It's dark. It's my house. They're not demons or heroes, just meat. I can feel my body twitch and thrum like a guitar string as they come into my house one by one. They split up, trying to ransack the place as quickly as they can. I laugh. A clicking, phlegmatic sound I find myself hoping they can hear as I run toward a vent, jumping down into it with no regard for the minor noise I make. In fact, I extend one blade and drag it along the duct. As they hear the sound, I can feel their fear. I can feel where they are, like a hellish radar. the closest to me, has no innocence to him. I smell crimes committed for pure greed and rage. That doesn't matter though. I need to warm up. I've spent so much time sneaking and cowering, I need to see what I can do. I settle myself enough to open the vent without attracting attention. The large, mask-wearing man rifles through the drawer, looking frustrated as he finds nothing better than 25-year-old computer errata. My limbs move almost of their own accord. I climb with a spider's grace directly above the man. There would have been a million ways to drop on him and kill him in an instant, but my mind went to none of these. Instead, I let the ceramic headpiece unfold. Thick, red-gray saliva hits the top of his mask. He jumps and turns towards the ceiling, shining a high-powered flashlight in my face. It doesn't matter. I know exactly where he is, and I get giddy charged from the burst of fear that runs through his body as he sees my face. I let go and extend both of my blades. Nothing to hack down a demon, but stout and sharp enough to slide easily through the man's eyes, the sockets behind them, and, propelled by my momentum, the brain behind that. He makes no noise, but both of our bodies hitting the floor most certainly does. I rip my arms shoulder deep in gore out of his head and take a moment to admire the spewing cavern of his face. I hear another man come running, another empty snack, but I'm more than eager to whet my appetite. I run to the door and place my back on the wall beside it. The second man, a wiry guy in his 40s, wearing no mask, but a mustache that would have been at home back in '93, walks by me and screams as he sees his compatriot. I walk behind him and drive both blades tipped down into his Achilles tendon. Putting all my weight and strength into it, I tear upward, the blades catching flesh, tendon, and fat, and tearing them out as a formless lump. He hits the ground, wailing in terror and pain. I can hear one of the group immediately leave his compatriots. I'm angered as I feel it was one of the innocent. I take this out on the thief screaming out on the ground. I climb his body, facing the door. I'm stunned at how easy these instincts come to me, and how much I'm loving this. It's like a hard drug. It scares the hell out of me, but I need it. He tries to see what's on his back, but he has no leverage to throw me off. I vent my rage by stabbing randomly, almost playfully, up and down his torso. By the time the last two enter, he isn't dead, but he isn't coming back. I stare at the two men as I petulantly stab at least 3 times, shutting the headpiece with a snap, and leap with grease-steel speed into a floor vent. They scream at the situation, at each other, at their dying friend, and I hear the telltale noise of a gun cocking. I'm not scared. It makes me laugh. I let the sound echo through the vents as I move randomly, stroking their fear, their paranoia. I stop and watch them back down the hallway from a ceiling vent. I pant with anticipation as I confirm the innocent has the gun. I scrape the knife, hurting them to the top of the stairs. The gun-toting buffet fires randomly, coming nowhere close to hitting me. I move to a vent between the two, letting silence ring, letting them ramble possible plans and explanations to each other. I drop, putting them between myself and the stairs, with no room to aim, and nerves frayed thin. The innocent man, a 23-year-old single father, working 2 jobs and doing this under duress, fires rapidly and poorly. Soup can-sized chunks blow out of his friend's back as the bullet exits. I do nothing to speed the man's fate. I stand in the hallway, letting the young man's shock and fear marinate his coming pain. He sees me and fires his 2 remaining shots, doing nothing more than sending harmless sprays of hardwood into my mask. He's stunned, but not enough to avoid making a break for it when I start a slow walk toward him, scraping one blade along my ceramic head, making a hellish screech. He stumbles down the stairs and I leap. I overestimate my ability and land grabbing his waist from behind as opposed to his head. I jam a blade into the side of his leg with the rapidity of a sewing machine, and as that steel buries itself into his flesh, I feel it. The pain of the innocent. I don't know if I'll be able to explain this in any way that makes sense, but I'll try. You know that false rush of strength, bravado, you hear cocaine users rant about. That high that makes you feel you could fight and fuck all night, likely both at the same time. Think of that. But instead of false promises, you are actually stronger, faster, and smarter. Not just a twitchy loser who isn't making any sense and can't get it up. I roar, a sound like a rock tumbler with strep throat. He tries to grab me and throw me off, but I retract a blade and grab his hand, easily twisting the wrist to such a degree the man falls to the floor. Nothing I could do before the kickstart. He tries to slam me into the ground, but I drive both legs into his back, briefly lifting him up as I move both of my hands perpendicular to the ground, parallel to my legs. I let my legs drop to the ground. The man's body falls, driving my blades through his chest. He looks to them, screaming as I find myself with the strength to throw him off of me. I don't want to sugarcoat things, but I don't want to subject you guys to too much shit either. The next 10 minutes I spent with my head unfolded, eating chunks of the guy till the life finally bled from him. When the frenzy burned itself out, it was my turn to be startled. Standing in the kitchen door, leaning against the frame, holding a pistol and the phone I'm typing this on, was the hero. He didn't blink. The gun didn't waver. He simply threw the cell phone to me. It was open to a blank screen with a flashing cursor. You have about 10 seconds to tell me something that makes me not shoot you to feel better about myself. You only get that because I know you aren't working with the squarehead, he says. I'll spare you the part where I catch him up via the notepad. It was intense, to the point where a shot was fired, but at the end of it all we realized, regardless of who was lying about what, we both needed a hand. We dragged the bodies down the stairs, mostly me for obvious leg-related reasons. I find myself now a lot stronger than your average person, but I can feel that power draining by the second. By my guess, it'll be burned out within a day. Not the buff I was expecting. I'll take care of these. That salted licorice prick isn't the only one who knows how to use that microwave. Listen, I'm gonna call you Punch. That alright? The hero says, taking a seat in his gore-streaked chair. As I look around the room, they did leave him 3 buckets. One contained waste, the other a pile of what was hopefully animal offal, and the third, water that doesn't look much more clear than my spit. Okay, Punch, I've been burned by supernatural shit before, but what choice do I have? You ever seen The Godfather? He asks, and I nod. He hands me the pistol, a large, boxy black thing. Then you know what to do. I don't know how long we have, but if you're planning on going to that flea market, do it soon. Once it's go time, I'll let you know. And one more thing, if you have any ability to get me a burger, maybe a soda, I can honestly say I'll forgive the slaughter up there. He tries to be jovial, but we're both beyond that. I scavenge the cash, cell phones, and 2 more pistols from the bodies, hoping it will be enough to trade for something useful. The next night, once dark fell, I quickly looked up the address on the card. With some help from the hero, his name is Leonard for all those wondering, and started toward it. From a distance, I saw nothing but a vacant lot across from a flea market, which made me start thinking maybe Leo didn't know how to work the phone as well as he claimed, and my destination was on the other side of the street. But as I got within a block of the lot, suddenly there was a building too tall to be held up by brick and mortar. Bricks of all types haphazardly put together and windows ranging from idyllic home to prison studding it randomly. Dominating the front of the building, though, was a giant LED sign flashing flea market in erratic patterns. I make my way to a massive tinted glass door that I'm unsure I can move as the last of the innocents wore off sooner than I expected. But as I walk up, a smaller door, sized perfectly for me, appeared. This one I opened with ease. As I walked in, I suddenly felt very normal and mundane. Creatures, entities, ghosts, demons, whatever you could think of, it was walking the shoddy-looking aisles, browsing, chatting, and bargaining. Dozens of languages no human has ever spoke, blended together with hundreds they have into a cacophonic din that threatened to drown out my thoughts. The air hung thick with a sweet smoke. Lights flashed, loudspeakers screamed deals. I saw signs for weapons, food, goods, anything I could think of. But I saw something else even more important. "Kaz, over here!" I screamed, seeing the Candyman a few dozen feet away. For a moment, I think I have no chance of attracting his attention, but eventually he turns around and seems to laugh and shake his head as he walks over. He takes us into a moderately more quiet part of the flea market. All kinds of entities sit at long tables eating and conversing. We sit beside a group of purple, wicked-looking things eating thin strands of fluorescent foodstuffs with fingers that look like fronds of anglerfish. "You little madman. You're actually going through with this? Do you even know where to go? What are you buying?" he asks curiously. "I'm a genius, so I guess I'll go to weapons and get a weapon," I say sarcastically. "How many weapons do you think are made for little fellas like yourself?" "No, you need an adult. I'll show you where you can make your bad decision." I'd be more angry at Kaz's condescension if he wasn't right. He walks me for what feels like hours to what looks like the most run-down junk shop of a stall in the place. The painted sign on wood that looks it was salvaged from the Titanic says, "Flap and Hive, the oddest odds and ends." Behind the junk-laden counter stood a massive bird-like beast. It was deep, rotten orange that reminded me of a tangerine left in a gutter. Its beak was a harsh, unnatural yellow. Its eyes, much too large for its skull, sat exposed and rolling about of their own accord on top of its head. It was 7 feet of nightmare fuel dredged from childhood memories. I almost mistook the second entity for a piece of junk, but who am I to judge? It was a knockoff Stretch Man toy, wearing a black unitard and bloated beyond reason. It stands up and vermin scuttle from tears on its latex body. "Flap and Hive?" I say, trying to start things off on the right foot. "We got a homunculus here, Hive. Speak slowly and don't use big words," the bird said. "That's how I have to talk to you, but this is a customer. How can I help you?" "Ignore my friend. He seems to think his shining personality pays our rent," Hive says. I tell him my situation. Hive seems to take a special interest when I mention the malignant. He scrounged around the junk and brings out 2 items. One is a green glass eye about the size for a doll. The other looks like a keychain with a small decorative sword on it. "This eye, it'll let you go unnoticed, the not shivering outline invisible, but unseen, unheard, and unnoticed by any sense anything has. This keychain, if you can get a malignant to touch it, I can guarantee it won't be bothering you anymore," Hyde says. There are letters on the side of the sword. Batter. I open my bag of cash, guns, and phone to a massive laugh from Flap. "Shoot yourself with one of those guns, and if you survive, take that money, buy a dildo, and go fuck yourself. Get out of my shop," Flap says dismissively. There's a moment of pregnant silence before Hive stretches out a limb faster than a cobra, and despite his 5-pound size, the blow sends the bird crashing to the ground. It gets up, chagrined, but amazingly not hurt. "That will be fine. My kind have nothing but especially cruel to me, but I'm very limited in how I can exact my revenge. If you can put a scratch on any of them, that makes up for any loss of finance. Though there is one thing you are not going to enjoy. This eye is a part. It has to be installed," Hive says before leading me back into the shop. The room looks like a cross between a wood shop and a surgical theater. I'm strapped, completely immobile, on a dark wood table. Hive brings out tools that radiate an energy that puts anything I've felt to shame. He opens my head and begins to slice, flints and form the flesh underneath. The pain was worse than I thought possible. Worse than trauma to the meat that makes up my internals. The tools work on a level that is beyond the physical, tearing parts of my very essence to connect with the jade eye he implants in what could generously be considered my forehead. When I get off of the table, I do what Hive tells me, focusing on the eye. I see and feel myself become nothing more than the whisper of an idea of a form on the material plane. I make my way home, casually doing everything I could to try and get noticed to no avail. And that is where we are. A handful of shaky alliances, a surgery I hope has no side effects, and a keychain I've been assured kills demons. As always, I ask you guys, what do you think? I've got so many plates spinning right now, I can only hope I'm making the right choices. Before I go, I want to apologize to people that have been cheering for me. I could have just omitted the details, but you guys deserve better than that. You should know who you are helping. For all you know, it could be your future house I'm living in. I just want to say being undetectable is exactly as fun as you'd think. No, I didn't do anything pervy, not really equipped for that. On that note, got to find out I don't have a digestive system either. All that flesh felt a lot worse coming up than it did going down. And I've managed to avoid doing anything evil with it, but come on, it's a fun toy to play with no matter what. I'm upbeat because I'm nervous. Currently, we were hours away from go time, and over-prepared is not how I'd describe my merry group. I'm going to tell you how we got there, but first, as always, let's see what the folks have been saying. You guys have kept me alive this long, I can't turn my back on you now. To the guy who was smart enough to check his house for me, good on you, buddy. This paranormal shit tends to like coincidence and connection. And hell yes, chuck me in a furnace if you find me. This isn't some release me from my torment kind of thing either. I don't necessarily mind this. Even the parts where I'm making you folks question your support, sad to say, but I'm made to love violence. No, I just have grown to like you folks, and at the end of the day, I'm a homemade weapon that isn't going to get any safer as time goes on. Getting Kaz and Leo together? Oh, I'm on that. And there are other folks like me out there? I mean, I've met entities, obviously, but I'm assuming not everyone has its own scary story. Wonder what the common threads are? As I just said, this paranormal shit loves its connections and serendipity. Now, I took a lot of advice, and while honestly, I get the feeling Kaz and Leo in the same room is a horrible idea, you guys seem to live and breathe this stuff almost as much as I do, so I trust you. I figured between the three of us, we had enough amped up senses to hear the coffin crew come in. That sounds like a professional vaping team, I know, but I'm an evil doll, not a marketing executive. So I broached the topic of a meeting of the minds to Leo. He sat on the old leather couch in the living room, shaking his head before responding. First, it would have been smart to tell me that before I got rid of those bodies. Second, it's a horrible idea. You might be friends with that thing, but he skips lunch and suddenly I'm getting a look at my guts. Leo says. I notice he is sporting a new leg. It's quite a bit more low-tech than the first. It's clearly a leg from one of the robbers, little too long and haphazardly reinforced with a few screws and wires. But somehow it seems to function a bit. He catches me staring. Necromancy is a neutral art. For example, if your friend was a white or something, it'd be a 50-50 chance he is an asshole or a psychopath. And besides, I know, like 2 necromantic spells, it's nothing, he says a little defensively. A Candyman, though? Nope, not something that physically capable of playing well with humans, he finishes. Now, there was actually a long, involved conversation, via phone on my end, in regards to relative morality, tactical risk, a balanced team, and a bunch of other dry, important topics. But for the sake of a little humor before things get morbid, pretend it was a star swipe into Kaz and Leo arguing. You want to bring another malignant into this situation? Really? Leo yells, sarcastically chuckling. Yes, actually, he owes me a favor and could level a city block if he really wanted to, Kaz retorts. That makes me feel the opposite of better. My issue isn't with lack of punch, it's with something that can level a city block inserting itself into an already high-stakes situation, Leo says slowly, trying to remain calm. Oh, and your alt-right tinfoil hat-wearing lizard person fearing gun nut is a better option? Kaz spits. You don't know anything about him, sugar nuts. He's a graysmith. He's not some militia asshole. He makes the shit that lets people like me survive things like you. Leo says in a condescending fashion. I know his type, got sick of supplying regular people with regular ways to kill each other, needed more of a thrill, so he started using powers beyond his grasp to make worse things to sell to more unstable people. Let me guess, Alex Jones fan. 10 guns in every room, gets paid in Bitcoin, isn't racist. Am I close? I bet I'm close. And that Graysmith name? Half of them aren't even Graysmiths, and half of those who are just genocidal twats. Kaz's massive mouth extends into a shoulder-to-shoulder smirk. Leo takes a step forward. I stomp my feet on the ground to get their attention, hoping to stop the situation going tribal. Maybe we don't even need backup. The chest could change things, I add, trying to defuse the situation. For the love of, have you not seen the pattern? Whoever made you skip class half the time by the looks of it. That trunk, it's going to have some spooky semi-functional garbage that's going to make you look real edgy but not do jack shit. Leo waves his hand dismissively as he says this. Yes, all problems just need a bigger gun with more blades welded to it, right? Kaz goes to say more, and I stop him with a kick to the shin. He looks to me, face full of rage. The adults are talking. Just stay out of it, you goddamn pipe bomb. Kaz screams, and suddenly both him and Leo go silent. Leo breaks the silence, first giggling, then chuckling, then full-on collapsing on the couch with fits of laughter. All the time, Kaz is suddenly apologizing profusely. Look at Mr. Monster Pride, mister. We have just as valid of a society popping pee-poms like they are going out of style. Leo cannot continue as he starts laughing again. I'm sorry, I'm old and frustrated. I'm in over my head just as much as everyone else here. That's not who I am. We aren't in the 1800s anymore. I know, I'm sorry. Kaz won't meet my eyes. I'm not offended, but at least this seems to be calming things down. Oh my god, I can't stop laughing. Maybe you have a little human in you after all. Dice Clay here, not giving a shit what people think. How about we try the trunk? At least that will take an option off the table, Leo says, wiping tears from his eyes. Leo and Kaz brought the trunk down to the basement, and despite the fact that it fit in a microwave thing, turning it on did nothing more than give us all sudden suicidal thoughts. Kaz acquiesced and let Leo call his friend JP. When this gentleman showed up, I thought maybe Kaz had precognition in his bag of tricks. He was in his mid-40s, wearing brown cargo pants and Duvault sleeveless shirt. He was bald, likely not by choice, with a muffin top, and a pair of Dr. Martin boots. I didn't see tinfoil hat, but the giant joint in his ear was a good substitute, and his thick leather bracelet screamed of compensation. Holy fuck, never thought I'd see one of you up close, JP says, poking Kaz. Could we move this along, sir? Kaz says, holding back rage. JP puts down a large black suitcase, opens it, and lights the joint. After this, he takes an odd obsidian tool, reminiscent of an awl, in his free hand and starts prodding the lock. Put that out. If this place smells like a stoner's armpit, it's going to give us away, JP. And you've already made it smell like an armpit, Leo chides his friend. Half of this is an anti-void herbal mix, which costs 10 times what the weed did. Personally, I'd rather make sure we aren't being watched, but that's just crazy old JP, whoever everyone seems to need. JP blows the smoke directly at Leo. After a few hours and a lot of borderline not okay conversation about minorities, he manages to pop the trunk open. There were 2 black leather bags in the box. The first we open exactly what Leo thought. A couple of heavier blades, a steel top hat with a sharpened rim, and a bunch of other regular flea market crap. The second had a small sheet of paper taped to it. The beautiful cursive writing reads as follows. M-Fused Alchemical Homunculus Proxy, Prototype 2. Dear Milford, this isn't to be used unless the mission is in severe danger. It's untested, but should be more than enough to cut down a few armed humans between you and the kid. Love, Angela. The thing inside me looked downright comforting. It was 4 feet of black and white, mange-ridden fur. I recognized it immediately as Sammy the skunk. brand doll. It was popular in the 90s. Its shtick was it used pre-recorded tapes to mimic talking. But this one was not factory standard. All its joints were enforced with overlapping bone. It had long, pointed teeth, obviously ripped from some predator, and behind the tail, where the tape deck should be, were racks of multicolored fluids. The tail itself was studded with blades that were rivaled only by the conical claws on its hands and feet. Instinctively, I found a deep red on button, and as I pressed it, I felt my mind thin and stretch, some vital part of me siphoned off. It was disorienting for a moment, but I quickly adapted and found myself in control of the contraption. Most of its functions were done automatically. All I had to do was will it a bit one way or the other. I wasn't a fighter ace, but after a couple hours I was confident I could point it in the right direction and scream kill with a degree of efficiency. We had a sparring match. JP's payment for opening the trunk was to watch, between me controlling the skunk and Kaz. I didn't win, but it was a hard-fought tie, much more than I'd be capable of unaided. We brought the contents of the trunk up to the attic, and as I shut down the skunk, my mind started going back to full speed. Kaz gave me his number for when it was go time and promised to have his backup on speed dial. Additionally, he promised Leo something to remedy his leg situation when he came by. Does anyone else feel things have been going uncharacteristically good for me so far? Don't worry, it changes. Leo and I repair the house to what we hope is in identical state. I spend my free time practicing with the proxy and trying out little baubles that came with it. But the one-eyed wonder weasel and his 3 balls came back in the wee hours one morning, and they brought company. About 24 20-somethings, all wearing identical sweatpants and yellow shirts. They're hurt and arrive in 4 hearses driven by the Lovecraft lads. I liked that one. How about you guys? All of them bleeding and missing pieces. They shuffle in a single file line into the basement. For a minute, I wonder how the bishop has the balls to do this in the open, but then I see faint shimmering around the group. Context dictates me to no one that isn't supposed to see these guys is going to. I flick on my own invisibility and trust in it to let me follow directly behind them. I get a feeling that something very bad is going down and want to be able to get Kaz involved as quickly as possible. The bishop and the malignant herd them into a room that has no business being as large as it is. From the ceiling are enough thin wires to wrap around the midsection of each human. They feed through rusted pulleys and hooks to a handle made of several fused ribs. The evil pricks tie the wires around the stomachs of the victims, one by one, chittering, laughing, and taking the odd piece of flesh, terrifying the sacrifices beyond reason. Some beg, some plead, some offer to serve, none are listened to. Lastly, they drag Leo into the center of the room, directly in front of the bishop. Didn't even have the guts to kill yourself, eh? Well, you get to see once again how you thinking you are the man with the big balls gets these people killed, the bishop says. He starts to chant. A breeze from nowhere starts to stir the room as the bishop begins to pull on the handle. The victims raise, wires digging inch by inch into them. He starts to get louder, punctuating his incantation by roughly jerking the handle, adding a burst of volume and raining gore that sends an arctic blast through the room. As the victims reach the ceiling, hoarfrost begins to cover every surface in the room. With a final massive tug, he bisects the victims in unison. More gore than is possible rains down. Minutes of blood and bones storming in the room before leaving an eerie silence broken only by the erratic drops. In the room stands 20 impish creatures, 3 feet of boils, pus, and more clawed appendages than any creature strictly needs. Their charcoal gray skin undulates with ropey muscles, and their stench is sulfur and iron. 2 more things, choir boy, the bishop says. The first is that was the last thing you'll ever see. Abruptly, he rips the remaining eye from Leo's head and starts examining it. He squeezes a bit, and suddenly a white-hot flare of fire, arcing static, shoots from the eye. That would have been helpful, wouldn't it? For the record, shot to the head with that, you'd be walking out. That second thing, though? The bishop lowers his voice, putting his face next to Leo's ear. You never bothered to check for security cameras, you oblivious fucking child. I've been watching. I run, getting to the attic and dialing Kaz as soon as I can. And that's where I am. I guess if this goes as bad as it's looking, this will be the last you'll hear from me. But by all means, I'm in need of any advice you have left to give, and I'll be checking the comments till I have to man up. If this is goodbye, though, watch out for the shit that goes bump in the night. It's smarter than you can imagine, and scarier than you've read. You know what my favorite part of it was, choir boy? Watching your brain start to turn on itself. Watching you talk to thin air, hide bodies, convince yourself something else murdered those intruders. It was beautiful. When you called in a snout man to try and get you free, that was my favorite. Your ancestors must be spinning in their graves. Wish I got an angle on how you killed those burglars, but that's the way the cookie crumbles, I guess. I hear the bishop gloat through the vents. When I heard cameras, I was confused. Last time I checked, they were loud things the size of bricks, cost upwards of $5,000, and were installed in banks and dangerous party stores. If I could smile, I would be. I wasn't made as early as I'd been assuming. My creator, half-assed as she may be, had cameras in mind. Think back to when I was trying to work through the van to black barriers. Today, from what I've read, cameras are everywhere. Whoever my creator is, she had that in mind. I don't think cameras can see me. My body rattles slightly, fear and panic trying to force rational thought from my stitched-together mind. I send Kaz a text, not willing to risk calling. Bishop had the place wired up with cameras, knows about you, but not me. Do not come, walking into a trap. Don't know how much he knows, I type. The minutes before the reply feels like days. Get out now. It won't be long before he finds out Leo wasn't hallucinating, is Kaz's reply. Unfeeling monster is a cliche so overused, just reading that probably made you skip a paragraph. From personal experience, I can tell you it's total horseshit. I'm, by any metric, a monster. I own that. But the fear I felt trying to get out of that house, it was real. Every tiny footfall sounded like a gunshot. Every rustling leaf, every cough I could hear from a block away, it invoked a sense of dread. At any moment, I knew I would suddenly feel a tentacle wrap around me and be dragged back into that house. But eventually, I found myself standing at the door to an upscale candy shop in a very downtrodden neighborhood. There was a sign that was yellowed and curled from time and light. Written in immaculate cursive was "Closed for family emergency." Kaz lets me in, and as the door closes, I stand in shock. The first thing that hits me is the smell. I'll be the first to admit spilled guts gets my engine running, but the rotten, nearly tactile reek of decaying flesh makes my vestigial digestive system try to run in reverse. Then I see it. Bodies half rotten and cocooned in some kind of wispy, tarry black substance. I know I shouldn't have been shocked. I'm in a world of blood and magic. But I guess I'd gotten to think of Kaz as just a nice guy. A regrettable part of being who I am, Kaz offers by way of explanation. I can't shake the shock. I know it's hypocritical as hell, that discretion of the bodies, the serial killer vibe of it all. I can't let it go. What do we do now? I say, still staring at the corpse collection. We tried things Leo's way, now we tap our world, Kaz says. There's a tone of trepidation in his voice. Why do you sound like you hate that idea? I ask, noticing one corpse is still moving slightly. Punch, you, me, Leo, we are the odd men out. What you are staring at is me making a half dozen kills that last a decade. I'm starving constantly, I'm poor, and I'm isolated. All it would take to remedy all of these issues is to spill some more blood and ruin a few more lives. I can still smell the shame on you from killing those people. I can still smell the fear of what you could become. And Leo, that guy is a strange duck just based on the fact he was willing to have a conversation with us. He can hide behind it all of the Archie Bunker type attitude he wants, but he's one of the good ones. In our world, it's hard to be strange, ironic as that may be. The society behind society runs on rules, ritual, and tradition. Reaching out for help isn't going to be as simple as you think, Kaz admits. What am I not getting? I ask impatiently. You are an experiment. Leo is a soldier. I'm an oddity. The only person I can think of that can help is a demon, Kaz says, sitting in a somewhat clean leather office chair. Demon, as in pitchfork and red skin? From the Bible? How's something like that possible? I question, not quite buying it. No pitchfork, no red skin, think more biblically accurate. And as to how that book can hold weight in a world like ours, if something is more powerful enough to fit the description and chooses to make the effort to, I don't think it matters much. I don't know if there is a God, Abrahamic or no, but I've met my fair share of demons, is Kaz's answer. A few phone calls later, and we find ourselves standing at the door of what looks to be an active meat packing plant. Pretty much the opposite of the rust-flecked, ominous structure you'd guess. Well lit, active, and with security manning several guard stations. Kaz carries me sneaking to the complex in the middle of the night seems old hat to him. The young, dark-skinned man working the booth doesn't so much as blink when he sees the collection of horrifying features Kaz calls a face. First floor, back corner, east side. Boss wanted me to say, if you're not early, you're late, the man says, almost bored. I don't like the nervous body language I see in Kaz. A metal gate that's pristine looking but squeaks open nonetheless lets us through. Have you ever wandered into the wrong part of town you've never been to? I'm not talking somewhere you've been mugged or had a bad experience, but one of those places where bad things happen so deep in the shadows they stay there. It has a feeling, doesn't it? A sense of violence and danger beyond any obvious signs. That's what this place feels like. And all those little bits and bobs of the arcane that make me more than a garage sale find thrum with evil energy permeating it. A massive metal roll-up gate takes its time to reveal what I'll start by describing as something man-shaped. It has a grin, the kind of hateful rictus mask that seems to escape the edges of its malformed skull. Its eyes are sunken back, scrutinizing from deep within black pits. The yellowed, dry flesh around them cracked and bleeding, as if trying to contain something within. Black claw-like nails, corpse powder skin, the thing stood nearly 8 feet tall, a parody of the human form. For a second, I look at it with my new eye. The hardware has a problem discerning what's in front of me. It transmits the signal to a mind that's still nothing more than meat. Burning pain, a nonsensical image that sits at the front of my brain like a fresh brand, and the knowledge, the horrible fucking knowledge. Seeing what it was, truly, even for the briefest of moments, it's not something you shake off. When I go back to looking at the lumpen, terrifying thing in front of me, I understand. It's nothing more than the demon's way of communicating with us. A minor, almost vestigial appendage that lets us beg at its feet. Kaz, you old motherfucker, it's been a while, and you brought me a gift, the thing says, pointing to me. Its deep voice has a command that goes beyond charisma. No, Pa, this is a friend of mine. I don't know how cultured your workers may have been, so I played things subtle, Kaz responds, letting me go. Well, come in, have a look at the new digs. Let's see what I can do for you, Pa says, motioning us inside the massive building. At first, things look normal, just about what you'd expect from a meatpacking plant. But the second that roll-down door shut, it was like a switch flipped. Suddenly, all around me are cultists and victims. Dozens of people strapped down or hanging from bloody hooks. Cultists cutting, burning, chanting, and flincing. One massive ongoing ritual. The floor is covered in a 1/4 inch of blood. Hunched back cultists mill about mopping and attempting to minimize the offal and fluids on the floor. The cultists give Pi a wide berth and seem not to show surprise at either Kaz or myself. Screams ring out as Pi walks us back to a modular office. The carpet is pure white, and as Pi opens the door, two of the cults scramble to place thick disposable towers under our feet as we enter. Once we're seated, the cultists stand motionless at the side of the room, masked and seeming more like furniture than people. It takes a moment to notice the bound, shirtless, pale man in the corner. There is terror in his eyes and fresh wounds over his malnourished body. His face has jester's makeup, either branded or newly tattooed on it. "Who's that?" Cash says casually, pointing to the bound man. "That's the meat puppet the last scraps of Jack the Ripper escaped into. Been a hell of a time trying to get old Demetrius out, but we're making progress," Pi explains as the man tries to scream and plead through a blood-stained ball gag. "I thought he was dead 10 times over, crafty old like," Kaz replies. "Me too, looking to get some favors out of this situation. Speaking of favors, what do you need, Kaz?" Pi asks. I can tell something about the demon's tone is making Kaz nervous. "Nothing I'm ready and willing to pay for in full," Kaz says. "Right, let no one say you don't pay your debts. But I have to ask, what's the nature of the request? Is this another one of your pet projects?" Pi's tone gets somewhat sinister as he talks. "I've crossed paths with a malignant that is not receptive to reason. I need someone who can make a stronger case than myself," Kaz replies, dodging the question. Pi takes a long inhale. Tension builds. "Kaz, I like you. We've known each other for over a century. The thing is, when you come to me, it's never for things that will advance the cause. You never want to expand your domain or cause chaos. Kaz, my friend, you've gotten boring. We are here for very specific reasons, and the more I think of it, the more it offends me you want to pretend that isn't the case." Pi is locking eyes with Kaz as he talks. "Pi, what's all this? You know me, you know I don't want to have to be butting heads with the likes of you to try and gain position." Kaz sounds nervous. "With what's coming down the pipe, I don't know if attitudes like yours will be very helpful. Walk with me, Kaz." Pi stands as he says this. As I hop from the white leather chair to join him and Kaz, a single drop of blood falls from my shoe, hitting the plush, pristine carpet. A cultist tries to dive and catch it, towel held out, but he fails. He's shaking and frozen with fear as Pi looks over. To call what that masked person received a beating would call vastly understating things. Bones break under an inhuman torrent of blows. Sick joy spreads across Pi's face as he leaves the cultists, damned to a slow, brutal death on the floor. Pi leads us out a door in the back of an office, and we are standing in a long, wide hallway. On either side of us, cells. Thick iron bars, some etched with runes and shifting symbols, cage in the things more and less than human. All hurt, screaming, and trying their best to escape. On the horizon is a war, one that will make the battle between heaven and hell look like a bar fight. Those that survive will be strong, those with power and cunning, and they will need soldiers, willing or no. This will be my army, Pi says, gesturing to those in the cages around him. Pi, if I've done anything to offend or came at the wrong time, I apologize. I'll be on my way. I didn't mean to impose, Kaz says, trying to stop what feels like a very bad situation. Pi stops and stands silent. Kaz, you don't get out of a deal. You know this. You get your favor, but I want more than just compensation. I want to see that you will still have that drive, that spark. I want to see that you are someone who deserves to survive. Give me the pipe bomb. Haven't been able to acquire one of my own, and I have a feeling the cultists could figure out a lot if they could pull it apart. As Pi makes his demand, my heart sinks. If I could sweat, I'd be soaked. Kaz attempts to laugh things off. He's more than just a construct. The creator left a lot of personality in there, and he's a friend of mine. I can have you a handful of humans in an hour or so, Kaz offers. You know who's my friend, Kaz? The bishop. And you coming to me asking me to intervene puts me in an awkward situation. I don't need more meat. I have more than I know what to do with. I need your little friend. Those are my terms. Pi turns around. The screams from the cells echo, providing hellish background noise. Kaz, I've got this. Out of the two of us, you are more likely to pull things off. And to be honest, maybe I'm sick of having a 90s slacker mind and a 90s slasher urges. I mean what I say. But it doesn't make the terror any less. The pipe bomb gets it? Now what do you need, Kaz? Pi asks. Kaz looks to me, guilt and shame on his face. He then turns towards Pi. The bishop is planning something large, and he has a friend of mine. I need the man saved and the malignant dissuaded from his current course of action. Kaz's tone monotone, defeated. Pi begins to laugh, an otherworldly sound that's full of hate that comes from every angle. When he stops, his voice is thick with rage and evil. Didn't believe it when I heard. Thought there had to be more things. But I just wanted to hear it with my own ears, or as close as I can get anyway. You sad, broken failure. You twisted little runt. You had so much potential, so much power and promise, but it's wasted. You come here and ask of me on the dawn of war to provide aid and succor to the line of those that have hunted us since the time began. You are dead to me, Kaz. The door to the cell on our left slowly creaks open of its own accord. Don't make me ask, Pi says by way of demand. We don't. The sense of rising evil and power all around us is plenty of incentive to not argue. Other than the cultists, we see individuals in black security gear. All of them slightly off. We quickly realize it's the guards, all tainted by Pi's essence. Within an hour, a gurney is wheeled in by 2 guards and a 3-eyed humanoid in medical garb. You'd think being resilient to harm would be nothing but a boon. I can't think of anyone who wouldn't want to be able to shrug off a shotgun blast. One thing I bet none of you have thought about is just how much worse this could make a torture. They rip, burn, and tear at Kaz form. The surgeon is an artist of pain, using equipment that ranges from surgical to industrial to decimate my friend. Kaz screams loud enough to rattle the bars of the cell. The noise in any other context would be blood-curdling, the type of hollow bellow that would make grown men afraid of the dark. But here, all it means is pain and betrayal. When they finish, they toss Kaz's broken form on the ground like so much garbage. He's alive, but one hand isn't coming back, and his body is hastily knitting together enough broken bones to make him sound like a thawing pond. Snickering, the guards leave us in the gore-stained cell. I can't focus on conflicting thoughts, urges, and feelings hit me all at once. I'm enthralled by the violence in the warehouse, scared witless by the situation we're in, and on some small, deep, buried level, wanting to pledge myself to Pi. At first, I think the vibrating is my heart, that the stress of everything has finally gotten to me and I'm going to die. Less like Chucky and more like Fred Sanford. But I don't have a heart, literally, anyway. As the fear and panic begins to dull, I realize it's my phone. And much to my surprise, the demon betrays you, I hear JP say after I've accepted the call. You've got some surveillance equipment in you, little fella. Outdated enough I've been able to keep an eye on you guys. Figured you'd try and stab Leo in the back eventually. Can you bust us out? I text back. Oh fuck no. First off, I'm not risking my life for the likes of you two. And more to the point, the Graysmiths aren't soldiers. We have connections, knowledge, we make things, but I'm not Leo. Did you see a tall, thin guy, maybe in clown makeup? JP asks. Yeah, but he didn't look in any state to fight, I reply. JP snickers. He wouldn't. Your buddy has been putting him through the ringer. But that Pagliacci-looking fuck is sitting on more power than he knows. I've got a man on the inside that can get him free and give him a box of some of my best party favors. He should be able to create enough of a shitstorm for you to sneak out and the 3 of us to get Leo. Once he does though, your buddy, he's going to go scorched earth. that place is going to turn into Lovecraft's wet dream. Beyond that, those people, the victims, half will probably snap and the rest, well, they won't see you as any different than any of the other evil shit there. What I'm saying is, even if you two make it, you'll be getting your hands dirty. As JP says his plan, Kaz tries to sit. His hips are still fractured and falls screaming. Doesn't seem like there's much of a choice, I text back. Trust me, if there was, I wouldn't pass your ass out of the fire, JP replies. And that's where I am. A dying phone, a possibly dying friend, and my only hope is some sketchy promises from a man that claims to be Q, but seems more QAnon. As always, if anyone has any ideas, let me know. So far, listening to those around me hasn't exactly gotten me in the best situation. Alright everyone, hope you enjoyed that story. That was 4 through 6 of the I'm an Evil Doll, but I'm not the problem. And next time we will try for 7 through 9. And I hope you enjoyed this episode. It took a lot out of my voice to do.
I was in the background of one of them, I think.
Yeah, the first one. She was in the background.
Don't ask why I'm eating on camera, because I am hungry. I also didn't eat my food earlier, so.
But if you want to see her making weird faces while I'm trying to read that first story, you can go to our YouTube. It's Pondering Skulls together, like it's not separated. Please give us a like, subscribe, and if you find us on any platform for the podcast, then please subscribe or follow or whatever the heck it is. And
please.
Yes. And leave us a like, and if you have any comments or if you want to tell us something or whatever, go ahead and do that. Feel free. And we hope you have a good night. Hopefully the next time it won't take a lot out of my voice to do. My throat hurts and I'm ready for bed. So,
love you guys so much. Bye.
Yes, we love you guys. Bye.